military badges, Ivy League degrees, MDs, PhDs. Where does true honor come from? Al-Azeez is one of the names of Allah that appears the most in the Quran, some 92 times. Izz in the Arabic language is strength and the quality of overpowering. And Izzah is loftiness and being hard to attain. Something that's hard to attain and desirable also is Aziz. But it has to be both rare and desirable. Being rare, and if you're not desirable, it doesn't matter. You have to be rare and something that people want. A precious metal, for example. And so the name Al-Aziz has three aspects. That which is rare, that which overpowers, and that which is the source of power. So the idea of overpowering is mentioned in the hadith of Uthman ibn Abi al-As, who said, I had a pain which was about to destroy me. So I came to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ said, wipe over it with your right hand, and 7 times say, أعوذ بعزة الله وقدرته من شر ما أجد. I seek refuge in the dominant power of Allah, وعزته, and His might, from the evil of what I find. So what's being communicated is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala overpowers even this pain. Allah overpowers this disease, this ailment. He said, I did it, and the pain went away, and I told my family, told everybody to do it, right? So you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to overpower this illness that you experience. The other aspect is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the source of power. And this is a crucial concept that Muslims always have to remember, and it will truly, if we believe in it, it'll change the trajectory of our ummah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of strength. قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرُ إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. O Allah, owner of sovereignty, dominion, you give sovereignty to whom you wish, and you take sovereignty away from whom you wish, and you honor whom you wish, and you humble whom you wish. In your hand is all good. Indeed, you are able to do all things. In Surah Al Imran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْعِزَّةِ فَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا. That whoever wants honor and power, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belongs all power and all honor. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all mentions in Surah Al-Munafiqun that they say, يَقُولُونَ لَإِن رَجَعْنَا إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلَّ. The hypocrites, they said that when we go back to Medina, the powerful of us are going to remove the debased. The honored amongst us are going to remove those who are debased. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِلرَّسُولِهِ. But honor really belongs to Allah and to His Messenger and to the believers. But the hypocrites, they do not know. وَلَكِنَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. Islam is the source of honor. You know, Hakim ibn Hizam, he went to the marketplace and he found a cloak that was being sold that belonged to one of the kings of Yemen, Dhu Yazan. So he bought it for 50 dinars. And then he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he gave him this cloak that belonged to a king as a gift. And so the Prophet ﷺ went onto the pulpit and he wore it, and it was said that there was no one in a cloak that was more beautiful than Rasulullah ﷺ when he was wearing that cloak. And then the Prophet ﷺ goes and he gifts it to Usama ibn Zayd. Rasulullah ﷺ was not attached to the dunya. He wears the cloak, it's beautiful, thank you very much. But then he's just as happy to go and give it to somebody else, and he gives it to Usama ibn Zayd. So Hakim sees Usama in the marketplace wearing the cloak of Dhu Yazan. So Hakim is seeing now the son of a freed slave wearing the cloak of a king of Yemen. So he walks up to Usama and he says, yo, what's going on? And so Usama says, what's the problem? I'm better than Dhu Yazan. My father is better than his father, and my mother is better than his mother. What made Usama ibn Zayd say that he, the son of a former slave, is better than one of the kings of Yemen? What's the difference between them? It's not his money, it's not his resources, it's Islam. Islam gave him that izzah. Islam gave him that dignity. He believes that he's better than one of the kings of Yemen. And he absolutely was. Not because he has more money than the king or more subjects, but because he and his family had Islam. And that is the true source of honor and the true source of superiority. There was a high school student in my community once who reminded me of this concept. In the world of high school social structures, I was not in high school anymore, so this is not a high school story, but he was in high school. And he would have been top tier in the world of high school social structures. He was tall, strong, handsome, very strong personality. He would have been someone that at any high school, any crew would have loved to have him. Yet I would always see him when he would come to the masjid with 2 other brothers who were the complete opposite. They were also in high school, but they were small, they had very mild personalities. And so as far as high school social structures go, he would be top choice and they would probably be the bottom choice. I'm just being honest. So one time I asked him about, why do you choose to keep company with them as opposed to the thousands of others I'm sure that would love for you to be in their company. And then he said something to me. He said, anybody who makes sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are more beloved to me that I be in their company. The fact that they pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes them cooler than everybody else in the school. That is the attribute of somebody who believes that Islam is the source of honor. Islam is the source of dignity. That is what izzah does. It makes a person feel that Islam is enough. And one of the greatest statements in that regard was given by a man who knew izzah, who knew strength, and who knew honor. In fact, more than most people who have ever lived. And that is the Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. The man who empires would collapse at his feet. When Umar radiallahu anhu traveled to Jerusalem, he was approached by his general Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah. Before the official protocol of the city began receiving the Khalifa of the Muslims, Abu Ubaidah told Umar that these are people, they're people of extravagance, they're people who like lavishness. And so he's basically, Umar is coming with his patched garments that he would sew. And so it's a vision that's much, much different than what the people of Al-Quds were used to. So Abu Ubaidah is hinting to Umar, like, can we get you in some, can you wear something different? And then Umar, he says to Abu Ubaidah, I wish that someone other than you had said that. And then he said, Kunna adalla qawm. We were the most humiliated people. This statement is one that we should all know. It's one that we really need to not just memorize, but try our best to internalize. He said, Kunna adalla qawm. فَأَعَزَّنَا اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ. Allah honored us with Islam. He said, we were the most humiliated people. I want you to imagine the map of the Arabian Peninsula at that time. You had Yemen south of you, and that was conquered or occupied by the Abyssinians. You had Iraq to the east of you, and that was taken over by the Persians. You had Ash-Sham north of you, and that was taken over by the Byzantines. And the Persians and the Byzantine Empire are both fighting over Ash-Sham. And then you have Egypt west of you, and that is taken over by the Byzantines as well. So everywhere around you has been divided up by the superpowers of the world. The Abyssinians had taken Yemen, the Persians had taken Iraq, they're fighting over Ash-Sham, and you have the Byzantines in Egypt. Nobody even bothers to conquer the Arabs. Nobody. Like, do you know what that does for your self-esteem when nobody even bothers to conquer you? There's nothing there. There's no resources, there's no rivers, there's no minerals, there's just some desert and some Bedouins fighting each other for hundreds of years, and there's a house that they say was built by Abraham. That's it. There's no use. But Allah honored us with Islam. Now all of those powers are collapsing under our feet. Now we've taken Iraq, and we're taking Ash-Sham, and we're taking Egypt. On all of these places, what gave them that honor? What gave them that dignity? He said, Islam. So Umar's perception doesn't end there. He continues saying, if we were to ever seek a source of honor other than Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will humiliate us again. Islam is the path of honor. It's the path of dignity. It's the path of strength, because all of these things are sourced from Al-Azeez. And so if we were to seek it from other than Him, through other systems, through other beliefs, through other methodologies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will humiliate us again. So following Islam is undoubtedly a path to izzah. But there's also another one that I want to mention to you. When a person understands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of izzah, then they trust Allah even if it's opposite to their instincts. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, مَا نَقَصَتْ صَدَقَةٌ مِّن مَالٍ. He says that wealth is not ever diminished by charity. And he says, وَمَا زَادَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا بِعَفْوٍ إِلَّا عِزَّةً. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not increase someone who forgives in anything other than honor. And no one humbles themselves for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except that He raises them. It's reported by Muslim. All of these three things in this hadith go against what you would instinctively expect. That if you give charity, it diminishes your wealth. And that if you forgive someone, they'll take advantage of it. And that they'll see it as weakness. And if you humble yourself, people will think less of you. But the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us that these things ultimately are in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's control. And He is the one who renders these things effective or ineffective. And so He made giving charity a cause of increase of wealth, not decrease. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made forgiveness a cause of increase of honor, not less. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made humility a cause of loftiness and not humiliation. One of the takeaways that I want you to have with this name is to try to seek izzah through forgiving others. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is Al-Azeez, grant the Muslims izzah over every earth and under every sky. Allahumma ameen.